Stella Stephanopolous. Welcome back to Seeing Other People. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on again. I love this round two situation. Currently coming into the episode with some chaotic energy, but super happy to be here now.
I love this because part of this is a catch up for us and we need it.
Yeah, we definitely do.
So, just catching everyone else up to speed real quick. If you are unfamiliar with Stella, she is the host of Everyday Endorphins. She's also an Equinox yoga instructor extraordinaire. If you're in the New York City area, come check out her classes. She's amazing and she has the most wonderful, soothing, relaxing voice on the planet. So, I'm excited to listen to it for the duration of this episode. But how have you been? What's new? What's going on?
Thank you for the warm introduction. And I think it's so ironic that you make that comment about my voice being soothing because we both know that I've been having a lot of voice issues recently,
Mhm.
inflamed vocal cords, windpipe, trachea issues. Like, I don't know what is going on. Actually feeling much better, but as of recent, just been dealing with a little bit of health issues and just trying to get that under wraps while I manage all these other things going on in my life, being the Equinox teaching role, my job, getting back into my podcast. So a lot's been going on, but the summer has been wonderful and just trying to soak in as much sun as possible.
You've done a very good job at that. You were just in Greece.
It was incredible. I also took a little trip to Croatia. So I cannot complain. Really had a fantastic start to July.
Incredible. Okay, what has been going on in your dating life? You knew that question was coming.
Um, well, great question. Honestly, nothing really. Like the past few months have been kind of hectic personally, like balancing the podcast, yoga teaching, and then moving apartments. So earlier on this year, I was actually dating a lot, and I don't think that we recorded like prior to, I guess, beginning of 2023. So I was going on
Yeah.
a lot of dates, and it was really fun, but honestly kind of tiring. And then life just got kind of hectic, and then things just kind of stopped. And I was traveling, but definitely now kind of excited to kind of continue the hot girl summer and just live my best life being single, which I think, we talked about last time, kind of the benefits to being single and how it's actually something that can be really fun instead of feeling like you have to be on someone else's timeline. So I'm still trying to just have fun and let things happen naturally in life.
I love hearing that, and I'm so glad that you are fully able to just embrace being single and embrace scheduling your own vacations and doing things and literally just following what feels right for you versus like, oh, I on this vacation to this great place. I wish I had someone with me. It's like, no, like I'm here with my friends and like I'm doing me and I'm loving it. And I think that's really admirable and something that some of us struggle to do. I know I really struggled with that. And so, like, just hearing that you're enjoying a hot girl summer and just enjoying being on your own, like, eventually, like, you'll have that itch again. But right now, you're good. I love hearing that.
Thank you. And I was actually thinking about this on the treadmill today. Maybe it was the endorphin high, the runner's high. I don't know what was going on. But I was thinking to myself, like, how valuable time is and how, when I was traveling in Europe, and obviously, like, when you're on vacation, the days feel long, you're in the sun, you're relaxing. It's a slower pace in Europe for sure. And then New York is not really conducive to that type of energy. It's like way more fast paced here. And I was thinking to myself, the minute I landed, my following weeks were completely booked. Like every night, I had a commitment. I had something I had to do. I had someone I had to see. And I was trying to make plans with other people, but I couldn't fit them into my schedule because I had already had these things lined up. And I started thinking to myself how like fulfilling the things that I do are to me and how busy I tend to get, and that's what actually brings me joy. And so I started to realize on my run that, like, I don't need someone else to complete me, not to sound cheesy, or like to complete my schedule. Like, my focus is not on someone else. It right now is fully on myself and the things that I'm doing and the relationships that I'm building and the people that I'm meeting. And I had this like aha moment because I was thinking, wow, like how great is it to feel satisfied with the life that you're leading and the path that you're like carving out for yourself instead of feeling like you need someone's attention or you need to be with someone. Like, I don't know, it just kind of dawned on me that life moves fast, and why waste your time trying to seek someone else's attention, or, there's a million things you could be doing to set yourself up for success in all your areas of life, not needing to like chase someone just for the sake of, feeling wanted, or feeling valued in that way. So I don't know, just some food for thought that occurred in my mind today.
My jaw is on the floor right now, and I'm like, "Okay, you figured this out on the treadmill. What magical treadmill was this? Where can I go find it? Is there a wait list for it? Oh my god." Okay, literally love every single thing that you just said, and even, like, that concept of coming back and realizing like the next 2 weeks are busy and you have all these things going on for you that you enjoy, like that's exactly why you're able to sit there right now and say like, I love my life and I'm happy being single and I don't need someone to complete me because you've created this world for yourself. You've filled it up with people and things that bring you joy and that make you who you are and make you happy. And so if you meet somebody, great. Like they can, add to that, but you don't need them to feel whole. And that's, I think, the biggest key in actually being in a place where you could get into a healthy relationship where you're not even like dying to right now, but that's exactly why. And so you're good if you stay single and don't meet somebody, and you're good if you do meet somebody and they add to your cup instead of they're the ones that fill it up.
Yes, completely. And this is something that I've heard about like day in and day out constantly. I've heard it from friends, I've heard it from family. I've watched TikTok videos about this idea, but it hasn't fully resonated until recently. And then one example is today on the treadmill. Um and I think like it's hard to say like, I feel like it depends on the person's timeline. Like for whatever reason, it just kind of hit me recently and it like actually resonated for me. But it's really nice to actually believe it now. Like it's one thing to hear these things and to be told, things come when you're least expecting it and you need to work on yourself and this and that. But it's another thing for it to really resonate and for you to fully embody that and believe it.
Absolutely. And I think even just that line, like things come when you least expect it, I almost think that line was created to encourage people who are so caught up in needing to find their person to force themselves to take a step back because they're not necessarily expecting it but they're wanting it. And when you want it so badly, it's there's so much pressure on it that energy rubs off. The person can tell like you don't care about them, you just want to be with somebody, I don't want to say the word desperate because I don't like that word, but when you are so the only like you're it's all encompassing of you just want a partner, that's likely not when you're gonna find somebody. And so
Yes.
this concept of, like, things come when you least expect it means when you're actually exactly the way you are, like, radiating positivity and passionate about things and about life and about just living, like, the life that you've created for yourself, that's really when exactly, you're not looking for it, you're not expecting it. Maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't, but if you don't, you're not gonna go home and cry about it because, again, you filled your life up with all of these wonderful
Mhm.
things.
Completely agree. And to your point around like not wanting to say the word desperate, I mean, I've been that person. Like, and I don't think
Same.
it's a bad thing to feel desperate. Like it's a human emotion or experience rather. But in those situations, you have to ask yourself why you want something so badly, right? And so this
Yeah.
brings me back to like a moment that I had in college where I really liked this guy. Let's call him Jack. Really liked Jack, and he like was into me, and it was really exciting for me that like for the first time someone that I found attractive that I never thought would ever lay eyes on me took an interest to me. And it like moved me. Like I was blown away. Like I genuinely could not believe that this guy could be into me. And the fact that someone I found attractive had that reciprocated feeling. And so I glorified him, I put him on a pedestal, and I allowed for behaviors to happen that should have never happened. Essentially, most guys want to have their cake and eat it too. And I knew deep down that like I was giving him convenience and I was giving him what he wanted, but it was never what I wanted because I thought this was the best I could get. And so I put myself at a disadvantage. And, this doesn't excuse poor behavior, but a lot of it I've reflected now has to do with the mentality that I had and the limiting beliefs that I had about myself and my self-worth and, how I should be treated. You show other people how you are meant to be treated, through your actions, your behaviors, etc. So, I can't fault myself because I did the best that I could at that time with the information that I had and the awareness that I had. But now, hindsight, of course, is 2020. I've realized that a lot of it has to come with discipline, I think. And you have to course correct these limiting beliefs that you have. Because if you start to behave in ways that are coming from these unconscious like beliefs that you're not good enough or you don't deserve XYZ, you're going to enable an ecosystem around you for these situations to happen. And then it's just like this perpetual vicious cycle where you feel bad about yourself. So my commitment to 2023/2024, because this year is speeding by, is to continuously put myself in situations where I don't have these limiting beliefs. And I'm coming from a place of confidence and abundance rather than like these like feelings of lack or not having from within.
I think we can all relate to your story about Jack. I think we've all been the Stella in the Stella and Jack tale. I really respect what you said about like it's not necessarily excusing Jack's behavior, but I think we're all guilty of allowing behavior that was horrible. Like we've all allowed people to treat us so poorly because we didn't know we could stand up for ourselves. We didn't know that we could ask for more, or we didn't know how to ask for more. We didn't know that we deserved more. And so as you create this life for yourself that you love, as you figure out who you are, you can also practice putting up boundaries. You can practice asking for what you need. You can practice saying no or walking away from a situation that doesn't serve you because you don't feel like, oh, well, if I walk away from this person, I'm never going to find somebody else. No, you know that you can and you will. And that if one person, if one thing, if a job, if a place, whatever it is, isn't serving you, there will be someone else, some other thing that will be better off for you.
Totally. And we can talk more about boundaries later, but this also just reminded me how accountability is super important too. And you have to
Yes.
do a lot of the self reflection work in order to hold yourself accountable. And, the irony here too is that there is kind of a pleasure in self sabotage. Like I knew what I was doing wasn't actually serving me, but I kept holding on because it felt good. Even though it felt horrible, because there was that dopamine of like, okay, he's gonna text me. Okay, he's gonna make time to see me now. It was inconsistent. It was unreliable. And there's studies that prove this, how it's addicting.
Yep.
So I became addicted to this uncertainty. And that's not healthy, but it felt really good because the moments where I was given like an inch, I savored that and I conflated that with like what this relationship was. And I think the quicker you can be to recognize that's a red flag and learn to be turned off by that instead of like excited and anticipating the next time they're going to see you, the better you're able then to manage unhealthy relationships and get out of that quicker.
Yeah, it's so crazy how we made the high highs erase the low lows, even if there was one high for every 10 lows. And I think it's about realizing, like checking yourself and remembering it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that painful. And if you're like, this is such an easy way to just check in with your situation. If you're anxious more than you feel comfortable and safe, not it.
Yes.
Not the right person for you, not the right situation for you. It should not feel that terrible. It should not feel hard. It should not feel like you're fighting for somebody or you have to beg somebody to stay or, you have to go through the bad to get to the good. It should be easy.
Yes, and like once you see that too, once that behavior
Yeah.
is shown to you and you realize like this exists out there, then you would like why would you ever go back to someone treating you poorly when you know that this is what you deserve and it also does exist and you are likely to get that. But I think in order to receive that type of energy, because I do think a lot of it is very energetic, you need to put that out there, and by putting that out
Yeah.
there you start from within. It's kind of the reverse. In order to put out what you want to get back, you need to actually give that to yourself. So it's like, well, how
Yeah.
do you do that?
Right. We have a mutual friend. I'm not gonna just pour her name out here, but she got into a relationship this year and she repeatedly says to me like, "Alana, like, I did not know it was possible to be treated this well by somebody." And I'm like, "Well, this is exactly what you deserve, and you found it because of all of the good you put into the world and because of how much you've learned and how much you've grown and how much you've challenged yourself, and it's not like the perfect person for you just showed up on your doorstep. It's that you did the work and you worked through shit to realize how you do deserve to be treated and to not settle for somebody who's not going to treat you that way. So it makes sense that you, when you do finally find your person, it's this wonderful human who goes above and beyond for you and makes you feel so incredible all the time versus making you feel anxious all the time."
You know, it's funny because my old roommate said the exact same thing about the boyfriend that she's now dating when she like started seeing him. She said to me, "Stella, I had no idea it was possible to be treated this well. Like it woke me up." And my I actually have a question for you because you're the
Yeah.
expert here in dating and with your podcast and all the work that you do in the space, but like I feel like in like heteronormative relationships, it's typically the women that come to this realization and the women that are like constantly putting themselves down. And I just want to understand, maybe from your perspective or what you've seen or observed, like why do you think this trend exists? Like why is it that us women are realizing the minute we are treated well, we're like in disbelief. Oh, I didn't know this is what it could be like. This is how it should be like. Like why does it hit us in this way?
I think it's because we go through so many experiences almost on repeat where we're treated so poorly, where there's a lack of communication, everyone's making assumptions, like, we're so quick to well, like, we've been trained, like, through the shows, the movies, the books we read, all of this stuff throughout our entire life, like, the goal is to be with somebody, the goal is to have a partner, like, that is when you'll be successful, and so we want it so badly that we're willing to compromise how we feel, we're willing to put up with things that we should not put up with, and so we do that for so long, and when we finally realize, like, how painful that's been and what we do want is more than that, we think it's going to be impossible to find that because everything in our life so far has told us, well, that doesn't exist. You're supposed to be anxious. You're not going to find somebody who texts you back in a timely manner or who reassures you because you haven't found that. And so when you do finally meet somebody who is emotionally mature, emotionally available, looking for the same things and their values align with yours and their future plans align with yours, it genuinely feels too good to be true. And I think that's something I struggled with when I started dating Jake was I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop because that's all I knew. I was conditioned to believe that it couldn't actually be this good. I couldn't actually feel this safe or be in this comfortable, reassuring, healthy relationship because every situation in my past had proven me that that was not possible and that something bad was going to come. And so, even in my relationship, I think for the first like year, I just kept waiting for something to go wrong.
That's stressful too, because then it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to put out that energy either and like manifest something wrong happening,
No.
right?
No, you don't.
So
You don't.
I
And
actually like curious, and I don't mean to flip the questions on you,
no,
but
do it.
I am interested. Like, at what point did you realize that wasn't serving you, and like you just had more trust in that relationship, and you didn't have to have this like catastrophize like or catastrophe
Yeah.
mindset?
I think every time I thought that something was going to go wrong, I was quickly proven wrong. you know, I had these ideas, and usually in my past, I was proven right, and I kept being proven wrong. And I would say to him sometimes, like, I feel like everything's like so good. Like, what's going to go wrong? And we would have these conversations about, like, yeah, like life is really good right now. Everything is really good with us, and we're so happy. And it was scary because you know, shit happens in life. Like people get sick, people die, people get hurt, people lose jobs. Like there's so much bad in the world. And so I think me opening up to him about like having this fear that things were going to go wrong just with us or with life in general, it was nice to hear that he shared those same fears. And, you know, we would together like hang on to like, well, everything is like really, really wonderful and great right now. Like, let's enjoy it because there's so much that's out of our control. And, it's funny. I actually remember the night that we got engaged, we got into bed to go to sleep. We had an early flight to Florida the next morning to see our families, and he fell asleep a lot faster than me. And I was like sitting there, like on the highest high of my life, like the greatest moment ever had just happened. It was incredible. And I was so happy. But I started like tearing up because I was like, wow, like life gets hard. And this moment right here, right now is so magical and wonderful and special and perfect. And I know it's not going to last. And it was a really weird thing to think about in the moment. And it's weird. I'm like sitting on my bed right now too, recording this. So it's like, I'm like, I was right here thinking that. And I was so happy, but I was also, again, like fearful of the future. But it was something where I just had to kind of let go and trust the process and know that, again, things are out of our control and we could spend our entire lives fearing the worst. But if you do that, you're not going to enjoy what's right in front of you. And we owe it to ourselves to be happy. Like there's so much power in allowing yourself to actually be happy. And I think that's something that is just harder to do than we think.
Beautifully said. I mean, I what you just described, I think, speaks to how complex and interrelated our emotions are. Like happiness
Hmm.
not existing without some sadness or nostalgia. Like it's all kind of interconnected. And these are kind of just facts of life. There are things out of our control, and everything is uncertain at the end of the day. So how you choose to view that is your choice, and that will color and your perception of reality and how you choose to act, which will dictate outcomes. And then it's this feedback loop. So
Yeah.
um, that's another theme I've actually been thinking a lot about is learning to relinquish control. I recently read this book called The Surrender Experiment, and it was one of the best books I've read. Basically, like the whole point of the book is that it's important to surrender to things we cannot control in life and just let the universe, not to sound like woo woo, fluffy, witchy, whatever, but like let
Yeah.
the universe, the higher powers, whatever you want to believe in, like let that guide your life. And I think it's a hard balance to strike, like being focused and having a long term goal and a vision, but also allowing like flexibility and just, things changing constantly. But I've kind of done an audit on like the best things that have happened to me and the times that I've been happiest. And it's like 9 out of 10 times been from experiences that I haven't actively tried to control. So if I can adopt this mentality in my dating life, if I don't try to control someone else, I'm bound to have things work out for me. And I think it also ties into the whole like lucky girl syndrome mindset, whatever that's gone on TikTok. Like, everything works out for me. I'm the luckiest girl in the world. To an extent, I think I do believe in that philosophy. And I do think it can be productive and helpful when like navigating the complexities of dating.
Yeah. Well, I love everything you just said. And I think it's interesting that you said like the happiest times that you've had are things that were so out of your control. And like you can't control somebody else. And I think that's so important to recognize in dating. You cannot control everybody else. You cannot control the person that you're into, the person you're in a situationship with, the person who just ended things with you. You cannot control somebody else. Okay. We're going to keep repeating it. You can't control somebody else. And I think that is something that we really need to work at learning because we get so caught up in this person is almost perfect. I just need to change this one thing about them. Or they really like they need me to help fix them, or it could have worked if only they had done this other thing, or it's not too late because I could still get them to do this. No, you can't control somebody else. All you can do is all you can do. All you can do is be you, be your best self, show up for yourself first, show up for other people in the way that you want. And when you're in the right place and you meet somebody else who's in the right place, that's when it will work. But you cannot control anybody else's actions or feelings.
I could not agree more. And to add on to your point, you cannot make someone else date you. That was something that I kind of like, that was a pitfall of mine in college and even like right out of graduation. I would hold on to those rose colored lenses, those tiny silver
Yep.
linings that like were just, it was completely inflated for no reason. And I thought, well, if I just keep doing this or if I do a little less of that, like then they're going to want to date me. And that was just very foolish of me personally. But I look back on it not with a critical eye, but with like a compassionate lens. Because there's no point in beating yourself down for like the behaviors that you exhibited at that point in your life. It's all part of the process, it's part of growing. But I have come to realize, like you mentioned, you cannot control anyone, and you cannot like convince someone to date you. And if
No.
you're getting to the point of like, I need to convince them, it lowers your self worth. It puts you at a lower like vibration. And you're then going to attract people that aren't like at a lower level than you. And you want to continuously elevate your life in all areas. So, and I think when we start to get into that behavior of like, I need to convince this person to be with me, blah, 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 it like comes again from this lack mentality. We're not coming from this place of abundance of power. And, um, you're not creating an environment that's conducive for you to meet the right partner.
Yeah. And also, let me ask you this. Why? Why do you so badly need this person who has made it clear, or has at least given some hints that they don't want to be with you? Why do you need them to want to be with you? Because you were a whole, complete, great person before them, and they're not adding to your life. In fact, they're making you feel less than. They're making you feel unworthy. They're making you feel not good enough. Like you have to change something about yourself in order for them to want to be with you. That's not the person that you should be with. That's not the person who is going to make you better and who you could actually build a life with. And it's so funny because we never think, when we're in these situations, we're chasing somebody, we're so badly trying to get somebody to want to be with us, and we're trying to convince them. When we're in those situations, we never think about, well, what about that person who tried so hard with me when I knew I wasn't into them? And it was just almost like annoying. Like it was so obvious what they were doing, and I didn't want it. And it made me feel weird. And I didn't know how to end it because I didn't want to hurt them. Like it's not fair to you to like be doing that to somebody else, because you're compromising like your own value system and your own beliefs, and you've been on the flip side of that, and it's felt weird, you know?
Hmm.
It's not something to be proud of. It's not something that you'll look back and be like, "Oh yeah, like those were really good texts that I sent." And that's okay. Like we learn from all of our mistakes in dating, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a mistake. It's something that we all go through, but when you've been on the opposite side, like just try and think about that in any dating situation where you feel like you're struggling, or you feel like, how do I get this person to want to be with me? Think about the last time that somebody was trying really, really hard to get you to like them and how that made you feel.
Yeah, romantically or platonically. Like think about, a French, so, someone trying to initiate a friendship that it feels like they're trying too hard. You're more likely to not want to build a relationship with
Yeah.
them. And I think when you also approach it from that perspective, it makes it less personal, and you recognize that it's important, I think, in life to not take everything so personally. And like, I feel like I'm pretty sensitive, and I've had trouble with this growing up and through present day, like learning to not take everything personally, in my personal life, at work, especially at work, when, it's a culture of
Mhm.
feedback. I think it's a whole other topic, but I think there's overlap with even, our dating lives. So when you can look at things from a perspective like you were just sharing, think about, if someone did this to me, it takes the personal out of it. And it's so much easier to just not do that.
Yeah. It really is. It's also, yes, dating is personal, but half the time it's about them and it's not about you. I
Yeah,
know it feels like it is, like, "Oh, if they don't like me, like, if they don't wanna be with me, why?" There are a million things going on in their life, in their head. There are a million other people they know. There are a million things coming up for them, things that they've been through, traumas they've been through, all of this stuff. The last thing that it has to do with actually is you.
yeah,
And even if it does have to do with you, I guarantee that every single person who has rejected you in the past, none of them would say, like, oh, yeah, like Alana should change this thing about herself and then I'd want to be with her. No, they would just say, yeah, like Alana was great, but like just wasn't my person. It's not fundamentally about like something wrong with you or something that you need to do differently or be different. It's just not a fit.
exactly. And when you get into this mindset of feeling like you need to change something about yourself in order for someone to like you, then that I think is an indicator of there not being enough work done internally to feel satisfied with yourself and happy with where you're at and whatnot. Like it's an indication that there's more growth that needs to be done. Granted, like if you are with someone and there's not compatibility as far as communication, that's entirely different because learning to communicate with someone else is like a challenge in and of itself because two people might be like great communicators, quote unquote, but maybe their styles and preferences differ and it's not making for a compatible match. So if you can learn,
Yeah.
I think, how to effectively communicate and behave and show love and affection towards someone else in a way that they are receptive to, that I think is like an appropriate time for things needing to change. But if it has to do with like changing aspects of your personality or whatnot, or things that are part of your, your fundamental makeup, then like, that's a whole other thing. I don't, you shouldn't do that.
The funny part about learning to communicate is that it takes communication to do that. But it doesn't have to be scary, and this made me think of something when I was at Hinge, my incredible boss, Nathan, he put together this spreadsheet and sent it out to our team and asked everybody to fill it out, and it basically said, like, how do we wanna receive feedback, you know? How do we wanna receive positive feedback? How do we wanna receive negative feedback? Do we want it to be in like, over Slack? Do we want it to be on the phone or in person? Are there certain things that we like this certain type of feedback would help us the most or things that like would really like trigger us or upset us. And I thought that was so just empowering that he did that because it allowed us to, and it wasn't just with him, it was for the entire team to see. That way, we started to learn what worked for somebody else and what didn't. And so maybe somebody just wants it to them like without any sugarcoating. They just want to know, like, tell me what I'm doing wrong and tell me what I can be doing better. And other people want it to be like like a compliment sandwich because they're a little more sensitive and they do want to know what they're doing wrong, but in a very like constructive and careful way where it won't make them feel like, "Oh, but everything I'm doing is terrible now." And it's okay if you're more sensitive. It's okay if you wanna have longer conversations where you can ask a lot of follow-up questions. It's okay if you're on the opposite end of that where you just want it written in one sentence in a Slack message. It's just a matter of knowing yourself and being able to share that with somebody else so that that person can then take that and be sensitive to your specific needs. And I think that's really cool to do in relationships or in friendships, even is say, like, if there's something that I want to talk to you about, or if I'm struggling with something, or, I think there's something we can work on, what's the best way for me to communicate that to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up even in friendships because I had a close friend growing up who I still consider a friend, but I think we've distanced a bit. And I think it's primarily due to our communication styles not being compatible. And I have a very like particular communication style. Like there are things that work for me. There are things that I think I need to receive in a friend to feel valued, to feel respected, to feel relevant in their life. And I had communicated that consistently with said friend and time again she like wasn't meeting me where I was trying to meet her at. And so I think that's kind of what dissolved the friendship. And it wasn't like a loss of love for her or not wanting to be around her, childhood friend, like knows me very well, will always be a good friend of mine, but the quality of our friendship has transformed and the strength has kind of weakened actually because we haven't been able to meet in the middle. And I don't say this like as if, in any bad like energy or like I don't have any bad feelings towards this person whatsoever. We still spend time together, we still see each other now and then, but you know, it just kind of goes to your point around like learning to effectively communicate because it extends beyond romantic relationships, like friendships, which I think is like equally, if not if even more important. Our friends are there
Yeah.
forever. You need a strong support system in life to get through hard things. So, friends, family, etc. Just relationships at large, communication is absolutely like fundamental, I think.
It's so unfortunate that we never learn how to do this. There are so many opportunities in our entire childhood, even not even up until we're 18, but like even in college, like there should be classes, workshops, lectures, anything just bringing up this concept and saying, like, you can actually learn to be a better communicator. Or guess what? Stella and Alana communicate differently. What a crazy concept. Like, we never learn this until there's a misalignment where you're struggling with somebody and it's important and the stakes are high. And that is so unfortunate because there were so many missed opportunities to grow up learning this, and it really frustrates me.
I agree. I also think to an extent, like you could say the same about taking care of our health. Like we often don't
Yeah,
really make the best choices until we're like, holy shit, now I like need to seek medical attention, either for our
right.
physical or our mental. And it like goes to show that it's so incredibly important to take preventative measures so that you don't get yourself in the situation. And that's why you got to build these healthy hobbies in your day to create healthy habits. So it just becomes second
Yeah.
nature.
I have literally no idea what we just talked about this entire episode. I also had an entire outline of things we've talked about before and listener questions. And we just like started talking and I could not be happier with how it went.
I mean, should we pivot to listener questions? Do you want to do
No.
that? Okay.
No, because then we'll go for like another 5 hours and we can't do that right now.
Part three, like a part three.
Part 3. Yes, absolutely. Okay, before I let you go though, just to close out, I've already asked you for your best piece of dating advice. I'm curious, instead of asking that, if you had a magic wand and could change one thing about modern dating, what would it be?
Oh my God. That's a really good question. Oh my God, I don't even know how to answer this because there's so many things I want to change.
List them all.
um, I honestly like call me like old school. I don't know, but like I would like to speed up the rate at which men mature, like genuinely, so that like women can just be treated better at like an appropriate age. I don't know if that's necessarily like reflective of modern dating, but I do think that like in like let's say our grandparents' generation, maybe yes, like biologically guys were still maturing at the same rate then, so like it's not as if they were super mature when they were younger, but to an extent maybe they were, but maybe they just were more traditional and treated women better and like, actually treated women with more respect. Like I don't think a lot of guys these days treat a lot of girls with respect. And maybe that's just how culturally things have shifted, dating apps, whatnot. I don't know. I think it's all interconnected, but I'd like to go back to like a baseline level of respect from men, but not to
Well,
generalize. I mean, I don't want to get canceled or anything.
it's funny because I try really hard to not be like that hate men mindset mentality, because I do think it's really problematic, but, it biologically, yeah, men mature slower than women, so this does actually make sense. I think the thing about, like, our grandparents' age is so funny, but I think with that, they had to grow up faster. They were, like, going off to war when they were 18.
Exactly. Like if
So
our grandparents were literally going off to war, you can like pay for my drink or you can text me back. It's like that type of thing. Like you can like I'm sorry, but like if you're not like 20 and like fighting in the war in America, So like let's put some things into perspective. But to also caveat, I don't have the like I hate all men mentality because I speak
yeah, no, I
like
know.
I say this honestly, like when I think about some of my closest guy friends, I think they're great people. I think they're kind. They have the best intentions. But I look at them sometimes and I'm like, do you
What
realize
are
like
you
the
doing?
implications of your behavior? Like, do you not get it?
Right.
So it's not like I hate all
They're lucky
men.
they have you to call them out on their bullshit.
I'd hope so, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Where can everybody find you?
You can follow me on social media. Stella Stephanopolous is my Instagram. If you want to stream my podcast, Everyday Endorphins, it's available on all listening platforms. And you can also follow along the show on Instagram at Everyday Endorphins. I post about my interviews, I post about my podcast and wellness events that I do throughout New York City. And I also will post a lot of like yoga content and just like a running stream of thoughts and consciousness if you're interested in learning more.
Men in the war in the 1920s work hard, but Stella works harder. All of that will be linked in the show notes. I don't know what I just said. Please erase that from your memory. We tried to make a joke. It wasn't funny. Stella, thank you so much for being here. We will definitely do a part 3 because clearly, duh. And to everyone who listened, thank you for listening. I'm gonna press stop now. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening, daters. I hope today's episode made you feel just a little bit less alone out there, no matter what your status might be. Give your finger a break from swiping and hit that follow and review button instead. And if you have any burning questions or want to share your own dating horror stories, reach out to seeingotherpeoplepodcast@gmail.com. And in the meantime, keep on seeing other people.